All right, gentlemen, at this time, and before I open again to the public, I'm going to go back to Rich. Rich, are you ready on this?
I think we're ready to roll.
Okay, all right, folks. Once again, we're going to learn something about this issue that is knocking on our door, so to speak, with the emerald ash borer. It's affecting our community and other communities. It's moving rapidly northward to us, and it will affect certain ornamental trees. So on that, Rich, why don't you take it?
Thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but
Rich, excuse me, if you could just bring that mic closer to you so
There you go.
people will be able to hear you. Thank you.
how's that?
Yeah.
A little better? Okay, so we're going to talk about introduce this pest. We're going to go over a presentation today, and we're going to cover a couple things about what this insect is, how it's spread, what to expect in the future, and what kind of decisions we might be faced, or the town might be faced, or its homeowners might be faced, because it's an equal opportunity problem. So the emerald ash borer, the pest has so far killed millions of ash trees. It was first detected in North America in 2002, around the Michigan and Canada border, around the Great Lakes, but they think the insect snuck in the 1990s. It probably came in underneath some wood pallets, some packing material that the bark was still on. Introduced from Asia, and China also has ash trees, but some of their ash trees are resistant to this pest, so there's some thought going on about maybe cross-generation of their genes to make the resistant things, but we're far from that. So to give a scope of it, out of about 1,000 ash trees, they expect maybe 4 will survive this insect pest. So it's a little problem that we have. And of course, it's spread by natural and human-assisted movement. The hard thing, it's difficult to detect when your tree is infested. And we're going to show some pictures of that in a few minutes, so don't stress about it yet. Normally when you see the damage, it's already too late because the insect burrows into the trunk. We'll see some pictures of that. And as it starts high in the tree, and that's going to be indications of dead branches in the tree and a loss of canopy and control measures. So you're going to have some issues coming with that. Control methods, some people say there are none, where you could opt not to control it and just think of removing all the ash trees. There is a biologic control. They found some parasitic wasps that works in woodlots of over 40 acres where the insect is there infecting about 25% of the trees. So there's some stipulations that won't quite work in a town environment. There are some chemicals that could be used. There's systemic that can be sprayed on a trunk. There's soil injection or soil drenching, and there's also trunk injection to get the chemicals into the vascular system of the tree to get absorbed throughout the canopy. And there's one other method is SLAM. It's a slow ash mortality, which means you have target trees. You want to target the insect, try to capture it, and try to have that manage that resource so the insects will be attracted to that one, thereby leaving some of the others. So how bad is the infestation? They're going to think that so far about 50 million ash trees have been killed in North America. Now, probably have hundreds of millions more to go. And you look at that, compare it with the other insects, other problems we've had in trees, the Dutch elm disease, which killed and affected a lot of the elm trees. They're not wiped out, but affected 75 to 100 million. And chestnut blight knocked out about 4 billion. So now we're talking a proportion that's even twice as much as a chestnut blight.
Incredible.
And that's what you're going to have if it's on the street side, dead, brittle wood. The life cycle of the insect is interesting. It's, the pointer doesn't work on the screen. And anyway, as it's in the springtime, the adults emerge from D-shaped holes. We'll see some pictures of that in a few minutes. As the adult emerges from those holes, it's an adult stage at that point. It feeds on leaves for about 2 weeks, mates. The females lay eggs, and the larvae cuddle into the tree. In the wintertime, they feed under the bark, and then they come out in the springtime again and recite and redo the whole process again. That's what it looks like. Compare that to the size of a penny and the wingspan when it's open. It doesn't have a segmented body like other insects. It's sort of straight and solid, but it has that solid emerald ash color, that emerald green color. So it's maybe it's an Irish bug, I don't know, but whatever. It has that striking green significant color, which is unique. This is what it does. It burrows into the trunk of the trees, and when you take the bark out, you're going to see this wiggling type of effect. This is a moderately infested tree. If something a little bit more severe, the tunnels are all over the place. Now, we did see some evidence that I thought we had the emerald ash borer in Hanover Township. I used a bark peeler, and that proved negative. There are a lot of insects that have the D-shaped exit holes, but this is characteristic. If it goes straight into the trunk of the tree, it more than likely is not an emerald ash borer, but some of the other borer insects that we have. So if you remember from high school biology, that green layer there around just underneath the bark, that's your cambium layer. That's the vital part of the tree. That forms the xylem on one side and the phloem on the other side, which also produces the annual rings, but that's your vascular highway system of food going up and nutrients going up and down the tree to nourish the tree. If you mess that up, you mess up the nutrient flow. Broken down into little layers, again, you have the bark. If you go from the outside, you go to the next layer here, it shows the phloem, and then you have your cambium layer. So that cambium layer is what they are attracted to. They don't burrow deep into the dead wood. They stay on that outer section, and that outer section is the one that they disrupt the flow of nutrients. So how's it spread? Well, this, and again, a lot of, on this presentation, you're going to see some logos. We're not promoting it. I'm not promoting it. I borrowed their slides, and this is stuff that was publicly available and some that they loaned to me. So basically, it's spread through nursery stock, it's spread through firewood, and also wood products. And this is that layer that we think is what caused the insect to get here in the first place. Now, this model says the adults fly up to 2 miles or less. I've read other literature where it flies up to 10 miles or less. So once you're in, the general rule of thumb is once the insect is within 15 miles of your town or your residence, then you really need to start thinking of managing and how you're going to address this pest. Again, it started in the Great Lakes area, and it spread out throughout the years. It went there, and now under federal quarantine, this whole section of the United States is under federal quarantine because of the spread of the emerald ash borer. These shaped exit holes, the insect the size of a penny. You get to feel in comparison. This is why it's so hard to detect the insect, because they start in the upper part of the canopy, and from the ground it is very difficult to notice these things. You can see some evidence of woodpeckers going after picking at these things, and you see more damage to that nice D-shaped hole and being all barked out and have a lot of injury to the trunk. This is street in Toledo. It's to get it this way, it sort of looks like they're a V street, but it's the same street 3 years apart. That's all it took. So it's a major issue in terms of street trees and, of course, the residences. And if you have a park environment, this whole row of ash trees, they were young, but they got wiped out. So basic facts, once it's infested, it might take 3 or 5 years to show evidence. And you see, these pictures are hard to see in the back, sorry. But virtually the canopy is thick, and then 10% lost, 20%. You see a general degrading of the natural green foliage of the canopy. And there's really no way practical without the chemical usage of preventing it from spreading to another tree. These are the facts we went over, but I wanted to show the picture of what the larvae looks like, and of course, the D-shaped hole with someone's finger pointing at it. In terms of looking at street trees, this is just the other orientation of that other slide you just saw. 0%, 10%, 20%, that's the effectiveness of defoliation. So some people feel that if a tree shows up to 30% defoliation, it can be treated and salvage that tree. And that also shows that up to 30%, it's low pressure, not a lot of population, and it gets a little bit higher as more and more defoliation occurs in the tree. I must warn you, when I say treatments, this is not something you do once and walk away from the tree. This is going to be an ongoing treatment for 10 to 12 years until the cycle, the population of the cycle peaks and tries to drift down and moves away from your area. Then you can start backing off. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And of course, there are some positive results, whether it's treated or untreated. Population buildup, it doesn't just go up slow, it goes up exponentially. You start with a couple insects, it goes slow, gradual increase in population, and then it expands exponentially. How does it affect the United States? The ash trees basically are every place. There's native ash trees in all the states except Idaho. But it's affected there. And a lot of this eastern half of the United States, a lot of the ash trees have been widely planted in this area because it has been a very strong, solid tree. Economic impact for some of these towns that have many ash trees, it's tough because they need to all of a sudden budget in resources to administer the program, to figure out what the population is, to figure out what the cost is going to be for removal. If you have 3,000 ash trees in your street and they all go within 3 to 5 years, that's going to be a major monetary impact, which is why some towns have, in the western Midwest area, have elected to treat the trees. Some other towns are following Purdue University's professor, and he recommends if an ash tree is small and up to 12 inches in diameter, just cut it down, and anything over 12 inches to treat. And there's economic models that you can go on a website to see how it works and what it would cost in the long run. But again, there's major impact to the cost of the town, to homeowners, to nursery products, to wood products we get, and resale value of trees, of houses in the area. It's a striking difference within 2 or 3 years' time if you have a solo population of one species of trees, which is why we like to vary it around when we're planting trees. It's not just have one genus. The big problem we have is that as the tree dies, an ash tree becomes very brittle, and it gets a little dangerous to remove. So extreme care has to be taken into that fact. I think since this whole mess started, there have been at least 2 fatalities where the ash trees killed the tree climber. One was in a bucket truck, one was in the ground when another part of the tree fell down on him as he was cutting down. He was in the middle of the woods. So management strategies. You can't do nothing and just anticipate removing all the ash trees or start removing every tree now. Again, the treatments are not a one-shot. You're going to have to be committed to it for about 10 years. The cost of the treatment runs about anywhere from $4 to about $12 a square inch diameter, which means if you have a 12-inch diameter tree, you're doing one tree, it could cost anywhere from $48 to $120 per treatment. So it's going to be a commitment. So you may want to think, or a couple of towns suggest, is to keep an eye and treat the historic trees and to remove the smaller ones, the stuff that are poor condition or trees that have been really mangled by the utility companies because they'll never look perfect anyway. This was a slide of what they use, what they call the trap trees, the slow mortality trees, the method of slamming the trees to attract the beetles to keep them from infecting other trees. I got to confess, I still don't quite understand how they do this. but, because I don't see how they could be attracted only to one, but there's a way. Again, major impact if you live on a street, what happens. So the treatment options. This is an example of a trunk injection. There's a little CO2 container, pumps the chemical into the tree. With this process, you're good for a treatment every 2 years. And again, don't mind the chemical names, but it just shows some support. It does work if you treat it. Another method is injected into the ground. There's a soil application. Soil drench method. This shows a professional doing it, but there are some products that are available for homeowners to use and applied the right way. And the picture I've seen is using like a 3-gallon water jug. But again, you're dealing with a chemical, and I'm not promoting the use of a chemical. I'm not promoting the use of homeowners doing it, but what I am promoting, if you're going to consider doing something like that, you need to follow directions and follow it exactly. So it's a method that works. Again, timing of a year is important. This is a topical application with the systemic insecticide. There's probably 3 chemicals only that work on this insect, and just different application, different rates with all these procedures. This one, you spray the bark of the tree from about ground level up to about 5 feet up, all around the tree trunk. It gets absorbed into the tree. The vascular system picks it up and distributes it throughout the tree, and it kills the beetles, and the problem is solved. But again, it's not one of those quick things that you do once. It's a repetitive thing. A lot of stuff here, a lot of resources online, a lot of information I received from various websites that they're just all over the place. And other people have helped out with providing slides. Are Rainbow Scientific, Aspen Tree Expert Company. Again, the research from the websites, and of course Bayer has helped us out as a good neighbor with some good information. So that's a 25-minute talk given in about 10 minutes, I hope.
Good job. Well done. We seriously, genuinely thank you for helping educate us. This information, Jerry, can we get this put up onto the township website as well?
Yes, I think we are planning to do that with the problem, yes.
Is there anything the government is doing? It seems to be an epidemic throughout. Is there anything the government is doing as far as trying to help out the different regions?
Good question, George.
The states are following, the states are supporting mechanisms for surveying for the insect. Once they found the insect in your state, their activity level drops down. So there's not much help from the federal level or from the state level. I might be wrong, but a lot of research we're getting from universities. And we're using people from Idaho and Fort Wayne, Indiana to get information what has proven success and unsuccessful.
I have one question, Ron, if I can.
Absolutely, sure.
Just a two-part. Number one, when the Asian longhorn beetle came here, in 2000 really is when we started dealing with it, there was very specific ways of dealing with it and removing the wood after it was cut down and chipped. Is there something specific in removing the wood here, or can you just bring it to a yard? And that would assume that it died during the chipping process, which is hard to assume.
The handling of the wood waste is an issue. The trunks of the trees are solid, so they'll be fine. The issue is you got to make sure there's no insect on that outer layer of the bark and hitting a cambium layer. There are procedures to follow to do something with the wood. I'm not up to date with that yet, but that's on my next list to do, so that might be to follow up with that information.
Now, 2 more quick ones. Do you think this, like the Asian longhorn beetle, was supposed to be the biggest thing and wipe out the whole East Coast? And fortunately it didn't, but there was very aggressive plans in place to not have that happen. Also, we had the gypsy moth, and we had a very bad problem with the gypsy moth in Hanover Township, right behind Salem Drive School. That's when most of us actually started working together. Do you think there's a chance that this won't be as bad as they're saying? Just like those 2 last culprits that came in our area?
My gut reaction, this is going to be worse than the other 2 because it's just so hard to find until you see evidence. Once you have the defoliation, if you're not on top of it, you have an issue. there are active steps that can be taken now to preemptive triage, and if you like the ash trees so much, or your homeowner, or street, or town, that would maintain it. My gut reaction is, this is going to be worse.
And my only real concern, I did a job in New Vernon, and they have many ash trees. Their streets are lined with them, and they said that it is coming there too. I just found that out yesterday. But my biggest concern is the removal of the wood, because there hasn't been information that went out to the tree companies yet about the way, because a lot of the logs aren't chipped. Like a lot of chippers today go up to 18 inches, so they have a knuckle bone to remove all the logs. I'm wondering where that's going, and it still has the bark on it.
I think that I have two sources from the state of New Jersey how to handle the wood, and I just haven't been able to call them yet.
Great report, by the way, very informative. Thank you very much for doing
But I'll
this.
get that information out to supplement this.
That'd be great.
If the tree is, I mean, we're all lay people when it comes to examining some of these trees, etc. But if we've identified the problem, in our conversations with Bayer Corporation, and I'm sure other pharmaceutical corporations like that who have agricultural divisions, there are effective products on the shelf. There are effective products on the shelf that both feed the tree, from a consumer standpoint, I'm saying, that feed the tree. I personally have used a product that was a granule that both fertilizes the tree, and at the same time the tree ingests the insecticide, which performs a preventative. You know, using the product after you see evidence of the issue, I don't know if that's too late, horses out of the barn, so to speak, you know, but you know, or do you go proactive and buy products like this and do your trees as a proactive treatment, you know?
I think the way of handling that, once you hear on the news that the insect is found within 15 miles of your location, then you start managing the trees and applying product. And again, timeliness of application is important. Springtime is more effective than the fall. In the fall, you have to double the dosage a little bit more to get it absorbed. It's cooler, there's not that much vascular flow to hit the leaves and stuff. So the critical time is to know that it's close, and if you value the trees, at that point, start moving on preventive measures.
In our conversations with Bayer, and Rich and I had numerous long conversation with them, conference call with them, it is their opinion or their recommendation to do something immediately now. So again, these products are available through for consumers through Home Depot, Lowe's, our local Agway farm stores over here have them as well. They're on the shelf. Obviously, we recommend caution in using any kind of insecticide or any kind of product like this at all. Adhere to what's recommended in the instructions for application, etc., being very careful with children and pets. But again, we do have assurances that these products are effective. They do work as long as the tree is healthy to begin with. It should do the job.
Ron, can I close with one comment, please?
Sure.
You know, if you're going to put something together, and I think it's a great idea to put it together, because knowledge is power, absolutely, and people are going to be asking a lot of questions. And you know we can't recommend specific companies, but maybe we can put it out there to our residents, specific things to look for in a company that's certified and insured to handle this type of work. Because even in my insurance, I'm insured for everything except pesticide. But there's classes, there's licenses, and then even to check out the companies. I mean, the Better Business Bureau isn't what it is today because they help sell and market businesses more than deal with complaints. But I would really like to work with this information and protect our residents from dealing with a company, just like all the companies today to remove bamboo. I mean, some of those prices are unbelievable, and 3 months later, the bamboo's coming back up. So if we could look at what criteria, what level of education, and the insurances that these companies have to provide to our residents, it would just better protect them. So
I think Rich can work with us on a series of questions. I don't think we can make recommendations.
Right.
But I think we can work on a series of intelligent questions to ask anyone that's going to be treating these.
And share it with the residents?
Yeah.
I think those are good points to make, and I think it'd be nice to easily put on a website, you know, what to ask.
The other thing to, for our community to be aware of, and I know the Township Committee will probably discuss this further, but, you know, many neighbors have said to me, well, you know, the trees on this property or that property. It's important for you to understand that most of the ornamental trees or the shade trees that have been provided, the township does have a right-of-way, an easement on the property, on your property, includes your sidewalk, includes the portion of your apron, etc. Some of these easements run from anywhere from 10 foot from the curb line to about 15 feet in on your property. So it may very well be that your ornamental trees or your shade trees, etc., are on your property. And the only reason I punctuate that is that you know, the township's approach to this, where trees get diseased, may be as drastic as what Morristown is doing, and Morristown's approach to how to handle this is a chainsaw. They actually are cutting down the trees, is what we understand. I think, did we talk a little bit about this? Is that, I don't know if is that their whole solution for this, or
Yeah.
they're using certain areas of their parks, etc.?
The town of Morristown doesn't have a large street tree population of ash trees. That's what's helping them out. Their population of ash trees was less than 200, and 50% of them were classified as poor to fair condition. So they're going to take
remove those
out, and then they're dealing with 100 trees, rough round numbers, and they're still in dialogue whether they want to use a treatment or remove the tree.
Or remove the tree?
There is, they're going to have more of an issue in some of the public parks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we might have that issue in our parks in the township that we need to just keep an eye on.
As I say, I think it's going to take further discussion on the Township Committee's part as to, in conjunction with our Public Works Department, as to how we see this for our obligation here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very, very well done.
Thank you.